Hello guys, this is Devanshi Parekh, and
Hi, my name is Dhwani Joishar, and welcome to Book Hub by D and
and
D.
D. So I hope we were able to synchronize this time. Welcome to Book Hub, and you guys already know what Book Hub is all about. And the first book, as we have already told, we have chosen is Blink: The Power of Thinking Without Thinking. It's a book by Malcolm Gladwell. If you want to read a description about what the book is all about, you can pause the video and go into the description and check it. So to save our time, I'm not repeating it again over here. This book starts with a story, and the story is the entire base for the book. So I would request Dhwani to come ahead and narrate the story to us. Over to you, Dhwani.
To set the foundation of the book, the author narrates a story about a statue called Kuros. Now, Kuros are very rare to find, and there must be about 200 only of those statues, and they are found from within the ground. So, most of them are found broken. But this particular art dealer found one of the Kuros, and he was just amazed by it. And he wanted to sell the statue to the Getty Museum of California. The museum conducted a 14-month investigation to find whether the statue is real or is it a fake contemporary. After the investigation, the result was that the statue is real and the museum decided to buy it. Now, as and when people started coming to look at the statue, people had different views. One of the art experts said that she has a hunch that there is something wrong with the statue. Another expert believed that there is something wrong with the fingernails of the statue. Another art expert described the statue as fresh. Now, fresh is not the word to describe a statue which is so old, right? So the museum got confused, and the museum decided to convene a symposium in Greece and invited the famous art experts over there to decide about the statue. The views of the art experts in the symposium were in line with the experts who had views earlier. One of the experts said that the statue has never been in the ground. Another one said that he feels there's a glass between him and the statue. The most interesting comment was that one art expert said he feels an intuitive repulsion from the statue. Now, what is this intuitive repulsion? We'll get to it later. So, after the symposium, the museum conducted another investigation, and the result of that investigation was that the statue is not a real one. So, what did these experts see in just 2 seconds or 3 seconds after viewing the statue? And how did they come to the conclusion that there is something wrong with the statue? That the that a 14-month investigation couldn't do it. So, what is it all about? That is what Devanshi will tell us now.
Dhwani explained us the entire story about how about the art museum and how things went. And now let's talk a little about those three experts. Now you must be wondering that how those three experts got to know that there's something wrong with it. So I'm sure they got some instincts, right? And that ability to get such instinct is called intuitive repulsion, where your intuition try to communicate something to you. And now where does that come from? The term is called adaptive unconscious, which will be further explained it to you by Dhwani. Now, and what is the ability of thinking so fast called? It's called fast and frugal thinking, where your unconscious mind has the ability to calculate everything on the basis of your past experiences, knowledge, and everything that you know. It is able to calculate as soon as possible and be able to tell you that, okay, what is the right thing to do. Now, I know it's very difficult to actually believe it. So, University of Iowa conducted an experiment. This experiment was conducted with two sets of gamblers. Okay, each gambler was given four decks, two red and two blue. Now, they were supposed to turn cards, and obviously they had to maximize the amount of money that they win. Now, what those gamblers did not know was that picking up the red cards were like minefield. Like, if you win, you get huge rewards, but if you lose a lot. Whereas if you choose a blue card, obviously what amount that you will get would be say $50 on which is like very, very minimal. But even if you lose on those blue cards, it would be a very modest penalty. So you won't be losing out on much. Now, this was something which gamblers did not know, and they obviously had to figure that out. So, by the experiment of University of Iowa, they got to know that the gamblers understood that they have to pick blue cards more over red cards. After turning off 50 cards, they got the conscious awareness that picking up the blue cards is more beneficial than the red cards, right? After 50 cards, I repeat. And it took them over 80 cards to actually understand that what is the entire strategy behind the game. That why is choosing blue card more beneficial than choosing the red cards? 80 cards. Now, this was the conclusion which they came up with the set of gamblers who were not hooked to machines. Now, this other set of gamblers were hooked to a machine where they could measure the activity in their sweat glands of their palms. So, like any other sweat glands, even the sweat glands of your palm would react under pressure or under stress, right? So, while they were choosing cards, while they were picking up cards, the activity in the sweat gland said that after 10 cards, after turning off 10 cards, the unconscious was pretty much aware that okay, picking blue card is more beneficial than red card. So obviously they did continue to pick up red cards, but the amount of picking red cards started to decrease, and they started choosing blue cards even more unconsciously. It took them 50 cards again to actually conclude that blue cards are more beneficial than red cards. Now, the moral of the story is that our unconscious mind and our conscious mind are two different things, right? Our conscious mind always looks for logic, always looks for strategy, and it needs reason to believe on something. Whereas our unconscious mind calculates and is very fast to calculate things and to know what is the right thing to do. However, we are not very so we very rarely listen to what our unconscious mind is trying to communicate because we are so much behind looking for logic and looking for strategy that we lose out on what our unconscious mind is trying to communicate. And when I say unconscious here, remember it means adaptive unconscious. So I would further request Vani to take over and explain to us what adaptive unconscious is.
The adaptive unconscious is called the internal computer of us human beings. Why so? Because it is the part of the brain that helps us leap to conclusions. It quickly and quietly processes a lot of data, which is important for us humans to function. We need to keep in mind to not confuse the adaptive unconscious with the unconscious of Freud. Now, Freud's concept of unconscious is all about memories, desires, fantasies, but the adaptive unconscious is all about quick decision making. Psychologist Timothy Wilson compares this adaptive unconscious to a jetliner. Today's modern jetliner almost works on an autopilot mode. No, it doesn't always need a human to take control. So just like that, our adaptive unconscious works on an autopilot mode. He also says that we toggle between conscious and unconscious depending upon the situation. To help us understand more, the author tells us about an experiment conducted by psychologist Nalini. Now, if I asked you to rate the effectiveness of a teacher, how long would it take? Would you want an entire semester and attend her lectures, or would 10 seconds be enough? So, in this particular experiment, a group of students was shown 10-second videotapes of a teacher teaching, and they were asked to rate the effectiveness of the teacher. Now, you would wonder whether 10 seconds are enough. Surprisingly, or maybe not, since we're studying about Blink. No, not study. Cut this part. Surprisingly, say cut. Yeah? The results of the experiment were that the accuracy of the rating after seeing a 10-second video was almost the same as the accuracy of the rating that the students gave to the teacher after attending her lectures for an entire semester. Further in the experiment, the students were shown a 3-second videotape and then a 2-second videotape and were asked to rate the effectiveness for six, both and were asked to rate the effectiveness of the teacher. Now, the accuracy of the ratings for 2-second videotape, 3-second videotape, 10-second videotape, or an entire semester, all the ratings were almost the same. So, we tend to believe, or we are conditioned to believe, that the quality of decision is directly proportional to the time we spend in making it or the efforts we put in making it. But that's always not true. We are taught the sayings that haste makes waste, do not judge a book by its cover. But that is not always true. You do not have to think so much always. For example, if you are crossing a road and there's a car speeding towards you do not have the time to think, to weigh all your options and put in so much efforts you have. Your brain just works unconsciously and you move away. That is what Blink is about. And to talk more about what the book tells us, over to you, Devanshi.
So Dhwani made us understood the difference of the adaptive unconscious and unconscious and how efficient our mind is when it comes to making decisions. And imagine actually tapping on your adaptive unconscious. Imagine how much of the difference it could make to your decision making power, right? So now we are moving towards the end of the introduction. So let's understand three major tasks of the book. First is to understand that make us believe that decisions that are made quickly are as efficient and as good as decisions which are made deliberately after giving a lot of thoughts, right? Second is to make us understand when to believe our instincts and when to vary them. And third task of the book is to make us understand that our judgments and our impression of things can be educated and can be controlled. So I'm sure a lot of you are thinking that my instincts doesn't work that way, and my instincts are always a failure, and whenever I think that there is something wrong with it, it just comes trigger backs to me and stuff. Believe me guys, I'm the same. I was just talking to Dhwani about the same. But I think that with the power of Blink and with the help of this book, I'll be able to master the art. And let's step on my journey whether I am able to tap it or not. So, of course, a lot of you are thinking, like me, that this power of instincts is gifted and it is only given to those few fortunate people. But, guys, it's wrong. It's an ability which can be built upon, and through this book, we'll build on this ability together. So we are all in it together, and if you are one of those who you think that instincts are not so good or could be more better, let's work towards it together. Let's build that ability. Towards the end, it also says that to build a different and a better world for ourselves and for others, and to master the ability of Blink, it is very important that we see our life through small microscopes. So what we do is we focus a lot on the bigger picture, that what will happen, or we try to see things on a very big scale, but that's not the right way. If you really want to know what's happening, you have to actually deep down dig down and see through your small microscopes that what is actually happening in your life, in the small areas of your life. And through Blink, we'll understand what are those things that we are supposed to be focusing on. So this is it about the book. This is it about the introduction of the book. And going forward, we will learn through a lot of experiments and a lot of other theories as to how to master the art of Blink. Um, Dhwani has one question that you guys might want to address. So Dhwani, over to you.
In the story that I narrated in the introduction, the story started with the art dealer finding the statue and approaching the museum. Most of the art experts found that there is something wrong with the statue. So why wasn't the art dealer able to say that there is something wrong with the statue? You might also have this question. And this question is addressed by the author. He says that when you like something so much, when you're so passionate about something, you tend to overlook your instincts, or you tend to overlook something that makes you feel against the thing that you're passionate about. So that was what happened with the art dealer as well. Apart from this, if you have any other questions or you want to share your perspectives or thoughts about today's episode, please feel free to comment in the comment section below.
And please like, share. If you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe. If you're watching it on IGTV, then please share it on your stories and with your friends. DM them about it. And we really appreciate your support. And yeah, this is it. Bye bye, guys. And Vani. So, this is love. We are sending our loves to you. And I hope after watching this, even you guys are doing this and sending us love. Bye bye. We love you and see you in the next episode. Ta-da.
Goodbye.